Hi, my loves. Welcome back. Today we're checking in on Epstein Zorro Ranch in New Mexico. And I'm not going to pretend that the energy around this place isn't heavy, because it is, and you can feel it. This isn't just another property. This was 7,600 acres of isolation. It had an airstrip. It was a private compound where survivors have testified that they were flown in, groomed, trafficked, and used. It's a place that continued operating long after his 2008 conviction, a place that somehow was never raided, not in 2019, not ever. And now, nearly 30 years after the allegations first began circulating, New Mexico has approved its first real investigation, a truth commission with subpoena power that began its work on February 17th of this year. So we're not here for speculation. We're not here for sensationalism. We're here to ask Spirit what the energy says about what really happened there, what's still being withheld, and whether justice is actually moving. We're using my Shadow Tarot for this energetic check-in. And if you've been here for a while, you already know that this deck does not sugarcoat and it doesn't soften edges. It reveals what's sitting underneath. As always, everything shared here is spirit-led, alleged, and offered for spiritual reflection and entertainment purposes only. Please use your own discernment. Always trust your intuition. Only take what resonates and lovingly leave anything that doesn't. And if you have personal questions, or if you're carrying something that feels heavy or unresolved, I offer personal tarot and pendulum readings through my Etsy shop. They're delivered thoughtfully, in depth, and just like the readings that you watch here. You can find the link to my Etsy shop in the pinned comment below and in the video description. Okay, loves, let's step into this carefully and let Spirit show us what's ready to surface. Spirit, what do you reveal about the true scale of what happened at Zorro Ranch, and how much of that reality is still being withheld from the public? We received the Five of Cups reversed, the Eight of Swords reversed, Three of Pentacles reversed, the Eight of Cups upright, and the Ace of Pentacles reversed. Okay, as I sit with the spread, the energy doesn't feel chaotic. It feels heavy and controlled, almost like a vault that's been sealed for a long time. The Five of Cups reversed opens this reading with grief that hasn't been fully honored. Spirit is not showing us shock. They're showing us suppressed sorrow, the kind of grief that was acknowledged just enough to quiet the noise, but never fully examined. This tells me the public has not seen the full emotional weight of what happened here. We've only been shown fragments, headlines, court documents, but not the scale of harm in its totality. There is this emotional truth that hasn't been allowed to surface. And then the Eight of Swords reversed comes in, and this is important. This card says the blindfold is slipping. It hasn't fallen off completely, but it is slipping. There are people who know more than what has been publicly stated. There are minds that were once trapped in silence that are beginning to see their way out of that confinement. But Spirit also shows something else here. The narrative we've been given was tightly controlled, restricted, and contained, but that containment is weakening. The Three of Pentacles reverse is telling me that this wasn't just an isolated failure. This speaks to institutional breakdown, systems not working together, and agencies not cooperating the way they should have. People who should have been aligned in protecting the vulnerable weren't. Spirit isn't pointing fingers, it's just showing us the dysfunction, the structural failure, and possibly deliberate disconnects between people who were supposed to be working in collaboration. Then we receive the Eight of Cups. This is the energy of walking away, and when it comes up in a question about scale, it feels like abandonment. Like certain truths were left behind because they were too complex, too damaging, and too expansive. Spirit is showing me that at some point there was a choice made to stop digging, to close the emotional file, and to move forward without fully clearing the ground beneath it. And then the Ace of Pentacles reverse seals it. This is tangible truth that never fully landed, evidence that may have been mishandled, and opportunities to establish full accountability that didn't materialize. The Ace of Pentacles upright is a seed, something solid that grows, but reversed, it's a seed that was never planted properly or was removed before it could take root. Spirit does not show something dramatically larger in spectacle. It shows something deeper in systemic failure. The scale of it all feels layered, not necessarily more shocking, but more interconnected, more protected, and more strategically minimized. Spirit says that enough is still being withheld, enough that the emotional truth has not fully surfaced, enough that the institutional accountability feels incomplete, and enough that the foundation of the narrative feels unfinished. But there's nuance. The Eight of Swords reversed and the Five of Cups reversed together say that this isn't permanently buried. It's delayed, contained, and managed. Spirit is not screaming explosion. Spirit is whispering unfinished. The reality has not been fully disclosed, but the confinement around it is not as tight as it once was, and that matters. Spirit, what critical evidence connected to Zorro Ranch still exists, and is it destined to come to light? We receive the Wheel of Fortune upright, the Devil upright, Page of Pentacles reversed, Six of Pentacles upright, and the Tower upright. Okay, this is layered. The Wheel of Fortune opening the spread tells me right away that this is not if energy. This is timing energy. Whatever evidence still exists is tied to fate. That means that it's not just sitting in a dusty box somewhere waiting for someone to stumble across it. It's part of a cycle that hasn't finished turning. And when Spirit brings in the wheel upright like this, it says that the story isn't over. The chapter hasn't closed. The mechanism is still moving. But then the Devil comes in and tightens the room, because this is not neutral evidence. This isn't a forgotten receipt or a stray document. The Devil says that what still exists is bound to power, bound to influence, and bound to people who have something very real to lose. This is evidence that is energetically chained to systems, money, protection, and leverage. And when something is chained like that, it doesn't disappear easily, but it also doesn't surface easily either. Now, the Page of Pentacles reversed is interesting because reverse pages don't scream that something was destroyed. They whisper that they were mishandled. Something that should have been carefully developed or investigated wasn't. And something tangible, like physical records, financial trails, or digital archives, may have been ignored, buried in bureaucracy, or intentionally underprioritized. But this doesn't feel like they were erased. It only feels like it was all stalled. Then the Six of Pentacles shifts the narrative, because this card is about exchange and distribution, something moving forward from one hand to another. And when I see this in a question about evidence, Spirit is telling me that this is not singular. This doesn't feel like one master file locked in a vault. It feels shared, passed around, copied, known by more than one party. There may have been quiet transfers, not public, not dramatic, but deliberate. And then Spirit ends it with the Tower upright. And you know the Tower doesn't come up for small things. If this all comes out, if this cycle completes, it doesn't trickle into headlines politely. It fractures structures. The Tower doesn't expose surface embarrassment. It exposes foundational rot. That means that whatever still exists has the capacity to destabilize more than one person, more than one name, and possibly more than one institution. So is there still critical evidence connected to Zorro Ranch? Spirit is saying yes. The card strongly suggests that something tangible remains, and it's tied to power. It's been mishandled but not eliminated, and it's potentially known by more than one entity. And to the second part of our question on if it's destined to come to the light, the wheel says that timing governs it, the devil says resistance surrounds it, and the tower says that if it does break free, the impact will not be contained. This all feels less like hidden forever and more like waiting for the moment the wheel can no longer be held still. That's the energy here, and it's not quiet. Spirit, what was really influencing the decisions not to raid Zorro Ranch when allegations had already been circulating for years? We received the Hierophant reversed, the Queen of Cups reversed, and the Queen of Wands reversed. Okay, Spirit is telling me that this isn't about incompetence. The Hierophant reverse tells me right away that this wasn't a simple oversight. This card represents institutions, law enforcement, federal structures, and systems that were supposed to uphold moral order. When this card is reversed, Spirit is saying that the system did not fail accidentally. It bent. It compromised, and it chose preservation over principle. This feels like authority protecting authority. The Hierophant upright would be integrity, but in reverse, it's selective enforcement. Its rules apply differently depending on who's involved. It's moral standards that exist on paper but not in practice. Then the Queen of Cups reverse comes in, and this one hits emotionally. This is compassion being turned off. This is people in positions of responsibility choosing not to emotionally engage with what the allegations represented. When this queen is reversed, she's overwhelmed or she shuts down. She looks away, and Spirit is showing me something heavy here. Not just corruption, but emotional avoidance and a refusal to fully sit with what those allegations meant. Right now I'm hearing, if we don't dig, we don't have to see. That's the energy. And then the Queen of Wands reversed clarifies the motive underneath. This is reputation energy. This is power image management. This is influence. When she's upright, she's confident and magnetic, but in reverse, she can become controlling, territorial, and protective of status at all costs. This is suggesting that powerful personalities or powerful networks were involved in shaping perception, not necessarily screaming orders, but influencing the tone, the urgency, and the narrative. The Queen of Wands reversed does not like scandal. She manages the optics. When we put these cards together, the story becomes more clear. The institution bent, compassion was muted, and reputation was protected. This doesn't read like we didn't have enough evidence. It reads more like we understood the weight of what we would have uncovered. The Hierophant reverse says that the system chose self-preservation. The Queen of Cups reversed is saying that empathy did not lead the decision. And the Queen of Wands reverse says that influence and image were part of the calculation. And here's the thing that's subtle but important. There are no chaotic cards here. No tower, no devil, no dramatic violence energy. This all feels controlled, deliberate, and quiet. It feels like doors that never opened, and that kind of silence is rarely accidental. What does Spirit show about the allegations that girls died at Zorro Ranch, and is the full truth destined to surface? We were given the High Priestess upright, the Hanged Man upright, the Knight of Wands upright, and the Ten of Wands reversed. Okay, this is layered. The very first card, being the High Priestess, tells me that Spirit is not dismissing these allegations. This is not rumor energy. This is hidden truth energy. The High Priestess upright says that there is knowledge here, not speculation, not fantasy, but knowledge. But it's buried, it's guarded, and it's sealed, possibly compartmentalized. This card always speaks of something that exists in silence, something known in small circles but not revealed publicly. The High Priestess doesn't scream, she doesn't dramatize. She sits in stillness and says, "There's more." And then the Hanged Man comes in upright. This tells me that whatever the truth is, it has been suspended, not erased, just suspended. The Hanged Man is a pause in time. It's something hanging in limbo. Spirit is showing me that answers may exist, but they've been stalled, held, and delayed, possibly for years. This is not, there's nothing there. This is, it's not being moved forward. This feels like evidence or testimony that never fully advanced, like a thread that was not pulled. Now here's where the energy shifts with the Knight of Wands upright. This is movement, and it's bold movement. It feels like someone or something eventually pushes this forward. The Knight of Wands doesn't sit still forever. He charges, he disrupts, and he acts when the momentum builds. This card feels like exposure energy that doesn't stay suppressed indefinitely. It feels like younger investigators, independent journalists, whistleblowers, or even generational shift energy saying, "No, we're not letting this stay buried." And right now, I just got this wave rushing over me saying that we are a part of this because we refuse to stay silent about this subject. But then the Ten of Wands reverse clarifies the timeline. This truth feels heavy, extremely heavy, and the Ten of Wands reverse suggests that at some point, that weight is going to become too much to carry in secrecy. They won't be able to hold it anymore. The system cannot sustain the pressure forever. When this card shows up in reverse, it represents a burden being released. And here's the subtlety. It doesn't promise full theatrical exposure. It promises the weight shifting. So is the full truth destined to surface? The High Priestess says that it does exist. The Hangman says it's being stalled. The Knight of Wands says that movement eventually ignites. And the Ten of Wands reverse says that the burden of silence cannot last forever. This feels like partial truth surfacing first, then more, and then more again. Not one dramatic moment, but a gradual lifting of what has been pressed down. Spirit is not showing clean resolution, but Spirit is absolutely not showing permanent burial. This feels like a truth that breathes under the surface, and buried things eventually demand air. Spirit, what energy surrounds the New Mexico Truth Commission beginning its work, and does Spirit show it uncovering what others fail to? We receive the World upright, the Page of Wands upright, and the King of Wands upright. Okay, this feels different. The energy around this commission doesn't feel stagnant, and it doesn't feel performative. It feels activated. The World upright opening the spread is massive. That is not a small card. That is completion energy. That is the cycle is closing type of energy. It is something coming full circle after a very long arc. Spirit is showing this as a karmic checkpoint. This isn't just another committee, and it's not just paperwork. This feels like a moment where unfinished business is being formally acknowledged. The World says something that was left open is now being addressed directly. And then the Page of Wands enters, and this is important, love. This commission may be new, but the energy around it is curious, investigative, and willing to explore what others were too afraid or too entangled to touch. The Page of Wands is youthful courage. It's the spark of, what if we actually look? It doesn't carry the same fatigue that previous systems carried. It feels like fresh eyes, new energy, and people who are not as invested in protecting old reputations. And then we get the King of Wands upright. This is leadership with a backbone. This card says that there's at least one person, and possibly more, that are involved in this effort who are not easily intimidated. These are people who understand the weight of what they're walking into, but choose to move forward anyway. The King of Wands doesn't hide, he directs. So does Spirit show this commission uncovering what others fail to? The World says that the cycle is ready to close. The Page of Wands says that the spark is there. And the King of Wands says that the leadership exists. Now let me be grounded here. Spirit wants me to tell you that this doesn't mean everything will be uncovered overnight. It doesn't mean that every secret is laid bare immediately. But this spread does not show suppression energy. It shows initiative, it shows intention, and it shows movement towards completion. Spirit is not showing me a dead end. Spirit is showing this as a door that actually opens. Now, whether it fully opens depends on follow through, but energetically, this doesn't feel like another stall tactic. This feels like momentum, and when the World appears upright, it usually means the chapter was always meant to close. The question now is, how much truth fits inside that closing? And lastly, Spirit, what karmic consequences are already in motion for those who caused harm at Zorro Ranch and for those who helped protect the cover-up? We received the Moon reversed, the Four of Swords upright, the Sun reversed, Ten of Cups reversed, Temperance reversed, and the Nine of Swords upright. Okay, this is not like karma. This is slow, psychological, unraveling type of karma. The Moon reversed opens the spread, and that's important because that's the card of hidden things surfacing, and it doesn't scream, it seeps. Spirit is showing me that whatever was buried won't stay buried. Secrets are not stable structures, and the Moon reverse says that the veil is thinning whether they want it to or not. Now that doesn't mean public explosions tomorrow. It means the concealment energy is weakening. Then we move into the Four of Swords upright, and this is isolation energy. Spirit shows certain individuals already being spiritually sidelined. They're retreating, keeping quiet, and pulling back. Some may look fine publicly, but internally, they're not at rest. This is forced reflection. This is the mind turning inward when the noise dies down. And then the Sun reversed appears, and this is powerful. The Sun upright is joy, clarity, and celebration, but reversed, it's dimmed light, reputation shadowed, and the glow fading. Spirit shows public masks losing shine, not necessarily destroyed, but tarnished. And then the Ten of Cups reversed. This is generational consequence. This is legacy damage, family names being fractured, and the illusion of perfect lives cracking. Spirit shows consequences extending beyond individuals. These consequences are going to touch households, reputations, long-term lineage, and there's going to be emotional fallouts within private circles. Then we receive Temperance reversed. This is imbalance coming due. Temperance upright is divine timing and harmony, but in reverse, it's excess without correction. It's moral distortion, and it's energy that went too far for too long. Right now, Spirit is saying, when imbalance stretches beyond its natural limit, correction begins automatically. And finally, we receive the Nine of Swords upright. This is the card that answers our karmic question clearly. They're experiencing sleeplessness, anxiety, guilt, and fear, so much fear. Spirit is not showing immediate prison doors in this spread. Instead, Spirit is showing me their internal torment. There are people already living with the fear of exposure, already replaying decisions, already calculating the risks, and already looking over their shoulders. With the moon reversed and the Nine of Swords together, Spirit is telling me the mind is becoming their battlefield. Karma isn't always lightning. Sometimes it's the slow erosion of peace. Sometimes it's watching every headline with dread. Sometimes it's realizing the story is not fully under control anymore. And when you combine the moon reversed with the sun reversed, that tells me something very clear. The light is coming. It may be partial at first. It may flicker, but it's moving in. And once it does, the mental weight increases. So what karmic consequences are already in motion? They have no silence, there is no escape, and they have no peace. They're already experiencing unease, isolation, their reputations dimming, and they're experiencing a slow tightening of the psychological grip. This spread does not show closure. It shows the beginning of reckoning, inside first, before outside ever catches up. If you're still watching, thank you. This was not a light reading, but it wasn't chaotic either. What Spirit showed us today wasn't spectacle, it was structure. Systems bending, truth suspended, burdens carried quietly for years, and a slow, deliberate shift that feels less like explosion and more like something they can't avoid. Zorro Ranch does not feel forgotten. It feels paused, it feels contained, it feels managed, but it doesn't feel finished. The cards didn't scream sudden collapse. They whispered unfinished cycles. They showed suppressed grief, institutional compromise, delayed accountability, and karma that works from the inside out before it ever becomes visible on the outside. And that's important, because when something has been held in silence for decades, justice rarely looks theatrical at first. It looks like pressure building. It looks like cracks in confidence. It looks like sleepless nights before headlines ever shift. And the Truth Commission energy feels different. It feels activated, intentional, and not performative. Whether it uncovers anything or not, Spirit made it very clear. This cycle isn't closed yet. And when the world appears upright in a reading like this, you pay attention. As always, everything shared here is spirit-led, alleged, and offered for spiritual reflection and entertainment purposes only. Please use your own discernment. Always trust your intuition. Only take what resonates and lovingly leave what doesn't. If you're searching for clarity on your own personal questions or situations, I offer in-depth tarot and pendulum readings through my Etsy shop. They're delivered thoughtfully, and just like you see here. You can find the link to my Etsy shop in the pinned comment below and in the video description. If you visit the page, you'll be able to see the reviews others have left. And before I close, I want to know what you felt watching this. Did this feel like momentum to you? Does it feel delayed? Or did something in the reading confirm what you've been sensing for a long time? Let me know in the comments, because silence has surrounded this place for decades, and the conversation is part of how silence breaks. Thank you for sitting in this energy with me today. Stay grounded, stay discerning, and most of all, stay awake. I love you, I appreciate you, and I'll meet you in the comments.